This is Louie, and if you want to support my channel, head on over to JList and buy yourself some Japanese imports. If not, head on over to Play Asia and buy yourself some games or gaming merchandise. If you don't want to buy anything, head on over to my account on Subscribestar and support me directly there. All the links can be found in the description.
So this is Louie, and I think I might be getting sick, which is unfortunate. My voice is kind of constrained, my throat's tight. And I didn't get a lot of sleep last night for whatever reason, so I'm kind of not at 100% for this commentary, so I'll ask that you forgive me for that if I should stumble and slur and, mispronounce words. But I wanted to talk about Rape Day, which is this cringy game that is now banned on Steam, and the reason I'm now talking about it today is because it was banned today on Steam. And I've been meaning to talk about this for a while. Not this particular trash game, because it does appear to be trash, but Steam. Now, I'm going to set up an analogy for you so that you can hopefully understand my perspective and the problem that exists with most people. Unfortunately, most people are fine with the censorship of art. They seemingly have two standards, and here's how I can explain it to you. Here's the analogy for you. You walk into a big box store. You go to Target, you go to Walmart, you go to a big box store, and you see a product on a shelf, and you say to yourself, not only am I not interested in that, I can't imagine who would ever buy this. Who's interested in this? It's tacky, it's gaudy, it's seemingly useless. Who would ever buy this? I can't imagine a world where anyone would buy this piece of junk. I'm not interested in this. And you walk on. You continue browsing. You buy something else. That is how most people act. Heavy majority of people act that way as it relates to walking in a big box store and just looking at products on shelves, browsing those stores. They see something they're not interested in. They see something that they say to themselves, I can't imagine who would ever buy that, and they continue on. Unfortunately, the majority of people who are capable of that normal function of seeing something on a shelf and just moving past it if they're not interested, most people, when they see a piece of artwork that they don't like, they demand it censored, or they sympathize with those demanding it censored. Most people, I'm afraid to tell you that, because most people are stupid as it relates to art. Most people are not versed in why it is philosophically, morally indefensible to ban something that is art. There's no defense for it. I've debated two intelligent people, Sargon and Count Dankula, on this particular topic, and especially with Sargon, he's not philosophically ignorant, but the best that I got from them, despite both being intelligent people, and I'm not trying to, name names for the sake of being mean or to dismiss them, but I'm just naming their names because I think they are intelligent. The best they can offer me, even though they both concede in the end that it's something that they both see as immoral, censorship, the best they can offer me in defense of censorship is pragmatism. It's just boiled down to, well, come on, Louis. Like, that's the best they can offer for any kind of philosophical defense. I mean, it's quasi-pragmatism. That's the best they got to offer. And the thing is, like I said, they're intelligent. Take your layperson. Take your censor. And they're not going to even offer you that. The problem is that to most people, when they see a pillow or cat litter on a store shelf, they just say to themselves, well, I don't need that, and they move on. But when it comes to a painting, suddenly they're turning around and demanding the manager take it off the shelf. I don't know why most people are like that, but it's not normal, and it's not morally consistent either. It doesn't make any sense for someone to demand a painting taken off a store shelf when they are, in fact, not interested in it. This is an argument that we get from SJWs all the time about SJW products, really, is that if you are offended by whatever or you don't like something, well, that product's not for you. The difference being that people on my side, people on our side, if they have any sense, would mock something, state that they're not going to buy it, but they would never demand it censored. The only case that I will defend is if you are demanding that your tax dollars not go towards some piece of shit that is even still art. I think that's fair, because you shouldn't be forced to pay for something that is, by your measure, worthless. I don't think that there's a very strong case for the public endowment of the arts. I would defend it to some degree, but unfortunately, I don't think there's much defense for it morally, because there's a common utility when it comes to roads and the rest of the things that the government pays for, obviously with defense and borders and the rest. There's a common good. There's a common utility for what is being paid for by tax dollars, but with art, I'm afraid not. There is no real utility. Art exists for the sake of being art. There is no other purpose. It doesn't serve any other utility but that. However, normal people would be fine if you and I paid, let's say, Ethan Van Sciver for his Frog comic. Most normal people would just not care. If they aren't interested in his comic, they would just look away. They'd look elsewhere. They take their patronage elsewhere if they have money in their pocket that they want to spend. Most normal people would just do something else with their time and money. It's unfortunate to say, but I think that that's a minority of people, seemingly. Most people, as it relates to art, are busybodies. The moderate position is not to tell the censor to fuck off. It is to appease the censor. That's the halfway point. That's the centrist and moderate position is, well, you don't burn the art, you just take it down. You know, we're not going to burn your book. You're just going to take it out of the library. You're just, even if it's let's say a private university, we're taking it out of the university. We're taking it off the Barnes & Noble shelf. Put it in your own private library, your own bookshelf. Don't put it in the store. Don't put it in the university. Don't put it in the public library. That's the moderate position to most people, even though it's morally indefensible. The best I've ever heard from people that are fairly knowledgeable about the topic, the best I've ever heard is, well, come on, Louis. That's the only argument I've ever heard to justify this. The only thing. And the censors, the left, they're not even going to give you that. They're just going to offer you indignation. That's the only thing. That's their only defense for why they're demanding something being removed, or if not removed, banned or burned. The only thing they're going to give you is their offense and their indignation. That's it. That's all they will offer you in terms of their defense for something. And if you question it, if you do the whole NPC thing of the meme of why, just why do you want to do this, they just freak out. They just rage at you. That's the only thing. That's the only response I've ever gotten, ever. They can't even come up with anything such as, okay, it's Steam or it's Walmart. Well, we can't have every good in Walmart, and Walmart's not there to sell every kind of product, and if a product doesn't meet a certain quality standard that they shouldn't have to sell it, you shouldn't have to, you shouldn't force them to sell your product. You don't even get that. I'm here playing devil's advocate, and I'm on the other side of the camp. I'm the one saying, no, you should sell this. Because as it relates to Steam, and I'm not even going to get into the ESRB, the Electronic Software Ratings Board. I'm not even going to get into the professional censor boards, okay? Just as it relates to Steam, they don't have any objective standard, because this is the thing, there is no objective standard. There is no actual enforceable standard. It is always going to be case by case. It is always going to be what goes under the radar, what artists can get away with, versus the SJWs and the censors clamor about something being banned, and then Steam reacts and then bans it. They admit themselves, and I'll try to find this, of what article I found this, from Steam itself, Valve, just admitting that it's like, yeah, it's a case-by-case basis, and it's this, the squeaky wheel gets the grease. If we hear the squeaking, we're just going to burn some books to make it stop. That isn't any kind of moral defense for what you're doing, Valve. That isn't any kind of defense. And I'm going to have to calm myself down here for the sake of making this, not an hour-long rant about how ridiculous Valve is as a platform and as a company. Especially being that they are former devs now. They used to make games before they sold games. You would think that anyone working at Valve could conceivably have an understanding for why this is morally indefensible, but this is the problem, is that they're like most people. They don't have any reason why. It's like, oh, well, no, Louis, the moderate position is you just ban some things. That's the moderate position. That's the centrist position. You just ban some things based on the shrieking of ideologues. But on top of that, One, you're not transparent about this at all. Steam, you in particular, Valve, okay? You're not transparent about this. 2, you've lied about this. 3, you admit that you're not fairly enforcing this. 4, you're not fairly enforcing this. I mean, should I continue on? Because I can keep going. I can keep going about this one particular topic. It has absolutely nothing to do with this apparent subpar game that I would never buy. It has nothing to do with this subpar game. It has everything to do with the fact that each and every time a case like this, which is every other day practically, at least once a week, there's a story like this. Routinely, a game is banned, a piece of art is banned, and there is seemingly no thought put into it. There is no actual consideration for what is being done at all. It is simply just the pragmatism. It is just this incessant, meandering argument for, I don't even want to say nuance. It's just pragmatism. Quasi-pragmatism. Well, what choice do we have? We're hearing the squeaking. We're hearing the shrieking. We could just ignore it. But no, we're going to instead remove this item, not because it's actually violating any kind of rule that we even enforce, but simply because we're hearing noises. We're hearing noises, therefore it's gone. You might think a handful of artists anywhere in the world. I'm not an artist, not really, but here I am talking about it. You would think the tens of millions of artists would have something to say about this, but they don't, because they are impotent cowards, philosophically ignorant cowards. They sit there saying to themselves, well, it's not my piece of work that's being censored, therefore I'm okay with it, because I'm not going to stick my head out of the fucking sandbank to actually defend someone else's content. This really is one of the biggest failures of the modern era, is there's artists everywhere. There's musicians everywhere. There's comics everywhere. There's actors everywhere. There's commentators everywhere, okay? All of them are cowards. It is exceptionally rare to have someone speak about the issue of censorship to the degree that I am. Very rarely will you ever hear someone talk about it in the sense that I am here, saying that it is morally indefensible to censor art. They will always play the middle ground of, well, let's just censor this. Well, what about violent content? Well, does that include war films, body cam footage, Zapruder film, these war documentaries? Do we censor all that? Nope. Because we have no consistent standard. We have no moral consistency. We have no means by which to actually enforce what we're offering, just flippantly, in the hope that we can continue to stick our head in the sandbank and make money. Seek fame, seek wealth, keep your head down. Don't put your head up. Don't stand up for anything that isn't fucking virtue signaling leftist bullshit that every goddamn corporate brand in the Western world has endorsed openly. Don't stick your head up for anyone else's work. Keep your fucking head down. Pander to the left. Make money. That is the overwhelming majority of comics, artists, actors, go down the line. Any kind of creative person. Most of them are fucking cowards. They don't want to be labeled. They don't want to be called something. Oh, you're a rape apologist. You're a pedophile. You're this, you're that. You're this bad, negative thing. Oh, God. Oh, you're going to ruin my brand. That is the overwhelming majority of artists and creative minds. They are spineless, ineffectual to such a fault that it makes it hard for me to respect them as artists. How do you respect an artist? I found a way. How do you respect an artist who's weak on the topic of censorship, who just caves to it out of fear that they're going to be maligned personally? Their character is going to be maligned, so they fear it. How weak of a person do you have to be where you should just know better, not based on, your knowledge philosophically, but one, out of self-preservation, two, just out of anecdote. Like, if your friend's work gets censored, why do you say nothing? Well, it's because you're a coward. You're ineffectual. It shouldn't be me or Sargon of Akkad or Count Dankula or any other person who's not actually an artist. I mean, I know Count Dankula might be doing stand-up now or whatever, but my point is, Why does it need to be us, YouTube jagoffs, riding to your rescue when we are, in large part, not artists? Why does it need to be us riding to your fucking rescue, trying to defend your rights? Why can't you fuckers do it? Why are you so ineffectual? Why are you so weak? Why are you so cowardly? I'm the biggest fucking daredevil there is. I'm going to violate every social norm and I'm going to violate every taboo. Well, except for on the issue of censorship. This is what I find to be offensive. This, to me, is morally wrong. I can't actually defend it morally, but I find it morally wrong. Therefore, I want it banned. But that's the thing. All of a sudden, something clicks in the mind of those artists. And rather than say what I'm saying to you, why do you want to take the kitty litter off the shelf? Why do you want to take the dog food off the shelf? Why do you want to take the pillows off the shelf? If you're not the customer for it, walk away. Go buy something else. Why are you demanding it taken off the shelf? Because I might want to buy it. I might want to have a look at it and decide for myself whether I want to buy it or not. It's legal. And what I love is the fucking argument of legally gray. You see this everywhere. Valve is doing it. Gab is doing it. You know, shout out to Andrew Torba, who is also in the camp of the cowards. They see legally gray. Well, shit, I didn't know that you guys were pussies. I didn't realize that. I thought everyone was a fucking fire starter. I thought everyone was running around saying how we're going to fucking push up against the SJWs. We're going to push up against the fucking government. The tyranny of the fucking government. And the tyranny of all the censors. All of a sudden, for some reason, this is the thing. I don't want to be labeled as X. Therefore, I'm going to keep my fucking head down. I'm going to make money. I'm going to get famous. And you can censor whatever the fuck. You're not a fucking brave person if you're just going to fold on this particular issue. Because I lose nothing by defending this stupid game, Rape Day. I lose nothing. I don't care what label someone is going to try to associate with me over the defense of this game that I wouldn't even buy. The reason being that I have a strong moral basis, a philosophical basis for my position, and you have fucking nothing. Your label is meaningless. But in terms of the legally gray, just to address that, the reason I say it's not legally gray is because I've actually read the case law. I've actually gone through the court cases. I've challenged people on this. They've sent me the information they've been able to provide, and I've debunked it each and every time. I've never seen anything to actually contradict my position on, oh, well, this is a legal gray area. Because here's the thing. Here's what I love about, let's say, Valve. You know, let's be forgiving of Andrew, because Andrew has really been up against the wall. It's just, he has this one fault. And I will say that, even with Andrew, I don't think Andrew is a dumb guy, and it makes it equally disappointing for that reason. But in terms of Valve, and this whole issue of legally gray, half the games they have in their platform would violate these rules that they've snuck in. These so-called standards for what is acceptable on their platform, half the shit that they promote would violate these standards if they actually enforce them evenly, which they don't. And I've already said many times in the past, and I've debated people on this point, and they can't say shit to me because they know I'm right, that as it relates to any kind of standard that you would have on art, you're never going to fucking fairly enforce it. It's always going to be subjective. It's always going to be catering to the whims of people shouting to you about it. There's going to be plenty more that's going under the radar that you're not noticing that is going to just be there. Or you're just going to actively promote and be a fucking hypocrite about. There's a good article from One Angry Gamer that mentions this, that there are a slew of games on Steam that violate their standards. Clearly, evidently, even objectively violate their standards. Provably violate their standards, I mean. And they just look the other way. They choose not to enforce their policy. And one of the big genres that they look the other way on is Yahweh. There are several clear examples of uncensored games that are sexual in nature, dealing with underage people or in school settings, both of which technically violate their standards. They're just on the platform. And in fact, Life is Strange also violates their current standards that they have in place. Life is Strange, the original, violates their standards. Demonstrably, provably, violates the standards that they have in place. And yet that is a game that they have promoted in the past. I've seen it on their store page where they've promoted it. It violates their standards here and now. They're not going to enforce any kind of rules against that game. They're not going to demand that that game be censored, removed off the platform, censored so that it can be allowed back on. They're not going to do that like they have with, goddamn, like 24 other Japanese games, especially the visual novels that have been banned, censored, then it finally allowed on. There's several clear examples of that happening, where the development of a game has been delayed, the release of a game has been delayed for the developers to censor the art prior to it being allowed on Steam. And there's other examples on PlayStation, but just specific to Valve, this is something that is being done over and over again. And yet, as it relates to boys love games, Yahweh, there is nothing stopping those games from being put on Steam. Nothing at all. I've yet to see a single article about a Yahweh visual novel being halted in terms of their development so that it can be censored, so that it can then be released on Steam. I've not seen any articles to that effect. It's been consistently Yuri games, harem games, and Dojin games, whatever the fuck it is for just like vanilla sex. It's always been those games that have been halted and censored, or just kicked off the platform outright. There is a clear bias as it relates to the enforcement of these rules on Steam. If you are a fucking French developer publishing your fucking trash that makes me money because I go on a stream and laugh about it, if that violates your rules, but it's some fucking indie dev that's in the fucking fold, is an insider crew in the gaming industry, they're allowed to be on your platform even though their game provably violates your rules. That's fine. But anything that's Japanese, anything that even is a tinge too lewd or might possibly involve minors, there seems to be a bigger bias on body type than there is anything involving age. It's just simply a censor sees a body of a female and says, okay, gone. How can they tell? Well, your guess is good as mine. They don't actually have a standard by which that they can actually determine the age of this fictional fucking character, but they're the authority. They're the ones with the power to censor it, and that's their only justification for why they're doing it. I got the hammer, and you're a nail. I get to decide who isn't. That's their moral justification for why they're doing what they're doing, and what is basically behind why they're doing it. They offer these vague notions of defending their platform against whatever attack. Well, Jesus Christ, you have a near monopoly on PC gaming. A near monopoly. How many millions of people, billions even, are playing on Steam right now? Have accounts? What's being threatened? What exactly? Well, man, we might have PayPal or other services start going after you. I think that's really what it is about. I do think so. MasterCard, Chase, PayPal, these financial institutions showing up at, the doorstep of Valve saying, hey, we're going to cut off our services. I think that's the reason. I think that's why they're doing what they're doing. And I got to tell you that, why not just be transparent about it? That, to me, is the biggest thing. Because they know they would cause, like, Gamergate 2.0. Something to that end. They know they would cause a huge controversy about censorship in gaming. If they would just come clean as to what's going on and why they're actually doing something, the fact that they have no means by which to fairly enforce this standard. They don't have the balls to say it, even though they likely know it's true, because they know it would cause controversy and they would be in the center of it. They would be the target. Better to lie and do everything in the dark than actually admit to what's going on and what their fears are in terms of them as a company. So I'll end this by saying that I talked about censorship last year to a pretty large extent. I talked about that quite a bit. It's really one of the main topics on my channel, and I don't know if it really helps my channel any to continue to talk about this, because I am talking to a minority. I know that. I'm talking to a minority. But despite that, I do think that it is worth talking about. I do think that it is worth covering, because despite the fact that the culture war rages on, and I've said this before, in mainstream culture, in culture at large, in American society, Western society, I can't speak for every nation, especially for how fucked up some are, but at least in the United States, I think that those of us on the side of free expression, free speech, and the rejection of censorious whims and ideological bullshit, I think we are winning, in effect, in mainstream society. With Donald Trump coming out and saying that free speech on college campuses and political and social terrorism in our society being an issue, him raising that at a major conference for conservatives, I think that forces the issue when most conservatives want to focus on other things. They don't really care. It's good that somebody is mentioning the issue. Someone is making a big deal about the issue. That obviously doesn't mean that there isn't hypocrisy from the right. I already said a majority of people don't fucking care. So a majority of people have the ground to be hypocrites on the issue of censorship. But so long as you actually have an authority making this an issue and forcing the topic, it's healthy for our society, and it pushes back at the censorious whims of the censor and of the ideologues. So I'm hopeful in terms of society at large. But in terms of gaming, and I've been saying this for a while now, I'm a pessimist. Because as time has gone on, especially in the last year, things have only progressed and have gotten worse to such a degree that it angers me and frustrates me to such an extent that I don't want to talk about it anymore. I really don't. And it's just because, I don't see it getting better. I only see it getting worse. And most people are just clamming up. They're not saying a fucking word about it. It's out there, open for everyone to see. It's obvious. And yet, very few people choose to even concede that it could be an issue. Concede that it's something worth mentioning. Most people won't do that. Most people, as far as I can tell, are either sympathetic to what is being censored, they are dismissive of the issue altogether, or they are those that seek the power to censor in their own right and think that it's justified. They don't want to, in fact, remove the hammer. They just want it for themselves. They want the power so that they get to be the arbiter of what is allowed in gaming or in society at large, in culture. Most people, by my experience, are bad on the topic of expression, especially. Most people don't have a fucking clue. And for that reason, in relation to gaming, I am a pessimist. I think it's going to get worse. And I don't really see anything that's going to put the brakes on the train, so to say. Anything that's really going to slow it down. I don't see anything. I don't see a goddamn thing. I don't see anything that's going to slow down the censorship of Steam or of PlayStation or of anything else. I don't see anything that's going to slow it down. Nothing. Out of all the people, I follow, on Twitter, I follow hundreds of people. On YouTube, I regularly view, several dozen channels, many in which involve, politics and culture. Very few people, very few, a fringe, actually talk about gaming, actually talk about art, talk about expression at all. Most people want to limit it to speech, and that's their, ballpark, where they want the battleground to be. If people come out and say, oh, obscenity law, hate speech, ban all this art, they're nowhere to be seen. By all appearances to them, this isn't their battle to fight. And because of that, because there's nobody willing to step up, be labeled something, and try to put the fucking brakes on to slow shit down, because of that, it's just going onward, man. This is a runaway fucking train. I'm getting, the metaphor of this? I'm getting lost in the metaphor. But it's true. It really is. People can say what they want to me about the upside of gaming, and there is an upside. There is a positive end to the quality of games. But in terms of expression, I think it's getting about as bad as it could get. We have no real defense for artistic integrity. It's a punchline. It's something that fucking BioWare used to get away with the shitty end of Mass Effect 3. That's it. That was its only use, was to sell copies of a bad game, and then outside of that, it's fuck artistic integrity, man. Censor every goddamn thing. That's the mainstream in gaming. And the biggest devs in the industry are all, it's ubiquitous. It is universal. They are all silent. Every one. Who the fuck in gaming is talking about censorship? Of all the dev teams, the tens and tens of thousands of devs, who the fuck's talking about censorship? No one. Zero. Approximately 0 people that are in the industry are talking about censorship in artistic integrity and free expression in gaming. None. 0. I am. I'm the asshole talking about it. I'm not a game dev. But if it wasn't me, who the fuck would it be, right? To me, that's the biggest thing of why I continue to talk about it, despite hating talking about it, is if it ain't me, who the fuck is it going to be? Seemingly no one. But I'll leave it there. Thanks for listening.